The opening sequence of Adventure Time shows you everything you need to know, and almost nobody stops to look at it for approximately 4 seconds before the main title card appears and the music shifts into the cheerful theme. The camera moves through a ruined landscape, broken swords stuck in the ground, nuclear bombs visible, half buried in the earth, arrows and axes. The Albert Einstein quote made visual that World War III would be fought with modern weapons and World War IV with sticks and stones. A broken television from the 21st century, VHS tapes, cassette tapes, the specific artifacts of late 20th century human life, scattered across the ground like litter. A concrete road, half buried, axles from a car, a pair of headphones, Princess Bubblegum's amulet, which we will eventually learn was stolen by Finn's past life and buried in the floor of the treehouse for 1,000 years. 4 seconds. And then the title card appears, and Finn and Jake are going on an adventure, and there is a candy-coloured world full of whimsy and magic, and the ruins are in the background, and you probably didn't stop to catalogue them. This video is about cataloguing them. Tonight, we are going through the full disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo, every piece of confirmed canonical evidence about what Ooo actually is, what the people in it actually are, what happened to the world that existed before it, and what it means that the most joyful, most warmly animated, most emotionally intelligent show Cartoon Network ever produced is set on the corpse of our civilization. Pendleton Ward has confirmed it directly. The Land of Ooo wiki on the Adventure Time fandom site, citing an interview and his FAQ page. Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, has stated both in an interview and in his FAQ page that the Land of Ooo is actually a post-apocalyptic Earth, the result of a global disaster called the Mushroom War. He confirmed it. This is not a fan theory assembled from background details. The creator confirmed it. The show takes place on Earth, approximately 1,000 years after a global nuclear war destroyed human civilization. The candy colours are real. The ruins underneath them are also real. Both are the show. Tonight is about the ruins. Get comfortable. We are going to be here for a while. Subscribe if you haven't. It keeps us here. Good. Let's start with the planet itself, because the most immediately disturbing fact about the Land of Ooo is visible from space. The Earth, as shown in multiple Adventure Time episodes, is missing a significant piece of itself. The Real You, Season 2, Episode 23, is the first episode where Earth is visible from space. There is a massive crater. A chunk of the planet is simply gone. The Adventure Time wiki on Earth documents this precisely. The Great Mushroom War resulted in numerous environmental and physical changes, the most notable being that of a large crater. The crater wiki entry adds, the Distant Lands special titled BMO shows the crater to be formed by some kind of gigantic shockwave during the events of the Mushroom War. Not a meteor, not a natural impact, a weapon of sufficient magnitude to remove a significant portion of a planet's mass. The Mushroom War, the nuclear exchange that destroyed human civilization and created the Land of Ooo, involved at least one weapon capable of literally blasting a chunk out of the Earth. The Land of Ooo wiki is specific about the location. In Sons of Mars and Orgolorg, it is revealed that Ooo is very close to the massive crater, if not inside it. The crater seemed to be covering what used to be Europe. Europe is gone. The continent that housed multiple of the world's oldest civilizations, the site of multiple of the most significant events in human history over the last 3,000 years. Europe, or the significant portion of it that once existed where the crater now is gone. The Land of Ooo may be geographically positioned in what is now a massive hole where Europe used to be. Finn and Jake go on adventures in a hole where Europe used to be. Now let's talk about the war itself, because the Mushroom War is the foundation of everything in Oo's disturbing reality, and the show is careful to document what it was while being deliberately vague about why it started. The Mushroom War. Wiki entry. The Mushroom War, also referred to as the Great Mushroom War, was an apocalyptic event that occurred roughly 1,000 years before Adventure Time. It was a global nuclear exchange, hence the term Mushroom War, that occurred sometime between the late 20th and early 21st centuries. A global nuclear exchange. Every nuclear weapon ever built, used. The mushroom clouds that give the war its name are visible in the show's opening sequence and throughout the background of various episodes. The war was World War III, or at least something functionally equivalent to it. The specific cause is never stated. The show knows what happened and shows you the aftermath. It does not need to explain the politics of the last war because the politics don't matter after a certain point. What matters is what was left. What was left? The Land of Ooo. Everything in it. Everyone in it. The timing of the war can be inferred from cultural references scattered throughout the show. The Mushroom War Wiki notes, it must have happened sometime after 1982 because the Ice King is heard singing the theme song and making reference to the sitcom Cheers in the episode Simon and Marcy, which premiered that year. Cheers premiered September 30th, 1982. The war happened after Cheers premiered. In one of the most specific pieces of cultural archaeology the show performs, Simon Petrikov, singing the Cheers theme while trying to keep his mind together in the ruins of the post-war world, locates the disaster somewhere after the early 1980s and almost certainly in the late 20th or early 21st century, the Cold War period, or its immediate aftermath. The mushroom bomb, the specific weapon that ended the war and created the Lich. The Mushroom War Wiki. The war likely ended when the mushroom bomb was dropped along with the other nuclear weapons. The Farmworld episodes support this. When Finn wishes the Lich had never existed and is transported to the Farmworld timeline, the distinguishing feature of that timeline is that Simon Petrikov used the Ice Crown to freeze the mushroom bomb before it detonated. In Farmworld, the bomb did not go off. In Farmworld, human civilization continues. The detonation of the mushroom bomb is the specific event that separated the world that existed from the world of Ooo. The bomb was mutagenic. It contained, or released, or activated. The show is precise about the fact, without being precise about the mechanism. A mutagenic component that transformed the survivors and the landscape. This mutagenic quality is the specific mechanism by which the nuclear war produced the magic and the monsters and the candy people and everything else that makes Ooo what it is. The radiation was not simply destructive, it was generative. It remade. The Lich is the mushroom bomb's most dramatic product. The Adventure Time wiki on the Lich confirms his essence, embedded in the Earth's geology since the KT extinction event 65 million years ago, was activated by the mutagenic bomb. The bomb woke something that had been dormant in the Earth for 65 million years. The last thing humanity made before it ended was the thing that had been waiting in the ground since before the dinosaurs died. Now let's talk about what the bomb made, because the most disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo is not simply that it was built on ruin, it is what the ruin became. The Candy Kingdom, the most cheerful location in Adventure Time's world. The confectionery castle, the cotton candy forests, the candy people with their gumball faces and their pastel colours and their tendency to explode when they get scared. The Candy Kingdom is, in the specific lore of the show, one of the most directly disturbing places in Ooo. The Candy Kingdom wiki confirms what the Vault established. A river of radioactive sludge that flowed through the kingdom was in the process of being buried under candy. This was because the sludge could easily harm or even mutate individuals who made contact with it, as was in the case of Shoko. The Candy Kingdom was built on top of a river of nuclear waste from the Mushroom War. PB did not relocate the kingdom when she discovered the radioactive river running through the construction site. She buried it. She poured candy on top of the nuclear waste and built her kingdom above it. The Mushroom War wiki on this detail. The episode implies that the Candy Kingdom is built atop a pond of nuclear waste. The Candy Castle stands on nuclear waste. Every candy person who lives in the Candy Kingdom lives above a buried nuclear river. The cheerful, frosted confectionery of the most lovingly designed location in the show is the decoration applied to a radioactive foundation, and the radioactive river is why the candy people exist. The CBR article on Oo's post-apocalyptic origins. The bomb also irradiated Earth, which brought life to all of its unique characters, such as the citizens of the Candy Kingdom. The radiation mutated matter into life. The specific mutagenic quality of the mushroom bomb's aftermath is what produced sentient candy. The candy people are the radiation's children. This is the specific disturbing implication. The candy people, as a species, are made of nuclear aftermath. Their whimsical candy forms are the mutagenic consequence of a weapon of mass destruction. They are, in the most literal possible sense, what happens to matter when it is subjected to the specific radiation released by the bomb that ended human civilization. They are adorable. They are also the direct biological consequence of the last war. Princess Bubblegum knows all of this. She built the kingdom. She buried the river. She made the candy people from candy science, specifically from the mother gum, the foundational substance from which she and Neddy emerged. And she has been managing the consequences ever since. Her scientific control over the candy kingdom is partly the control of a ruler over her subjects, and partly the control of a creator, managing the stability of beings that exist at the intersection of candy science and nuclear mutation. The candy people explode when they get too scared. PB has to manage this. They are unstable, literally, in ways that require ongoing scientific attention from the person who made them. The treehouse, Finn and Jake's home, probably the most familiar location in the show. The enormous tree with rooms built into it. The kitchen with the oven, the bedroom, the beanbag chairs, BMO's home. This treehouse grew from the bones of Finn's previous incarnation. The vault establishes the full loop. Shoko, Finn's past life, stole PB's amulet and fled from the Gumball Guardians. She fell into the radioactive river. The radiation mutated her into something unrecognizable. She crawled out of the river and made it to a sapling at what would eventually be the site of the treehouse, and she died there. The tree grew from her body. The Adventure Time. Reviewed analysis of the episode. Finn's past life's bones, along with Princess Bubblegum's amulet, had been sitting beneath Finn and Jake's treehouse for centuries. The treehouse is Shoko, not metaphorically, literally. The specific tree that grew to be the treehouse grew from the specific body of a specific person who died there. The home that shelters Finn's current life grew from the body of Finn's previous life. The guilt that kept Shoko attached to the material world, the amulet she stole, unresolved, is what kept her connected to the sapling and allowed it to grow with her still in it. The treehouse is a monument to a wrong that took 1,000 years to be righted, built from the body of the person who committed the wrong. When Finn returns the amulet to PB at the episode's end and Shoko's ghost resolves, the loop closes. The treehouse is still Shoko's bones, but the guilt that animated the haunting is done. The tree stands on her remains, without her ghost needing to tend to it anymore. The ruins in the background. One of the most sustained pieces of disturbing world-building in Adventure Time is the show's habit of placing the ruins of human civilization in the background of ordinary adventures, not as the point of the episode, but as the landscape through which the episode moves. The Mushroom War Wiki catalogues these moments with precision. Death in Bloom, Season 2. Debris of civilization, including numerous police vehicles, in the land of the dead and crashed UFOs. They also take an escalator down to the entrance to the underworld, and a TV is in the ground. Police vehicles in the land of the dead. The escalator to the underworld is built from pre-war infrastructure. The dead are descended into through the ruins of the civilization that produced them. This is either a practical necessity, the infrastructure was there, and the world adapted to it, or the show's specific visual argument that the afterlife of this world is constructed from the remnants of the world that ended. Susan Strong, Season 1. The human tribe live in the ruins of either an underground city or a bunker that failed at its purpose. In the underground city, a car, a refrigerator, and some sort of submarines/huge ships can be noticed. A bunker that failed at its purpose. The humans who built the bunker built it specifically to survive whatever was coming. The specific humans who ended up in it, the human tribe, are the descendants of people who tried to survive. The bunker failed, not catastrophically. They survived, but the humans who entered it became mutants over the generations, no longer recognizably human, no longer speaking coherent language, no longer connected to the civilization that built the bunker. The survival the bunker provided was survival of the body at the cost of the mind and the culture and the language and the identity. The Simon and Marcy episode, Season 5, Episode 14, contains the show's most sustained and specific visual catalogue of post-war ruin. Simon and young Marceline walking through what was recently a city. Oozers, the mutant creatures created by the bomb's radiation, in what the Mushroom War Wiki notes are former highly populated areas such as the metropolis in the episode Simon and Marcy. The oozers cluster in places where there used to be large numbers of people. They are, the wiki speculates, former humans, the people who couldn't get to a bunker, who were exposed to the mutagenic bomb directly, who became something else in the exposure. The oozers are the people who didn't make it to shelter. The human tribe are the people who made it to a shelter that failed them slowly over generations. The humans on the islands, Two Bread Tom's tribe, and their descendants are the people who sailed away before the bomb went off. And then there is Marceline, who was half demon and survived through her biology, and Simon, who survived through the crown, and Princess Bubblegum, who was created from the mother gum after the war by processes the show doesn't fully explain. The specific tragedy of the oozers, if they are former humans, they are the closest thing Ooo has to the ordinary people of pre-war Earth, the people who didn't have crowns, or demon heritage, or boats, or bunkers, the people who were just there when the bomb fell. They became the shambling, leaking green creatures that Simon has to fight off while protecting a sick 7-year-old. They are the default fate of the unprepared, expressed in animated monster form. The Businessmen. Business Time, Season 1, Episode 8. Finn and Jake find icebergs in the ocean. The icebergs contain men in business suits, frozen, preserved from the pre-war period. The businessmen are awakened when the icebergs melt, and they help Finn and Jake, initially effectively, then less so as they become lazy and entitled, and eventually try to take over the adventure business. The businessmen are eventually refrozen. The businessmen are from before the war. They are, possibly, the most ordinary human beings in Ooo. Men who had jobs and suits and a business culture, and who were frozen before the war, and are still, fundamentally, trying to operate in the framework of a world that no longer exists. They have no skills for Ooo, because they were formed in a world where Ooo did not exist. Their attempt to help Finn and Jake becomes an exercise in cargo cult behavior. They are mimicking the forms of the work they knew, without any of the context that made those forms functional. The Mushroom War Wiki notes that the businessmen were the specific catalyst for the show's post-apocalyptic mythology. In an interview with Pop Candy, Pendleton Ward said that the post-apocalyptic aspect of Ooo was not in the original concept of the series, but emerged as a result of the episode Business Time, when the writers decided the businessmen being frozen in ice made the world post-apocalyptic, and they just ran with it. The entire post-apocalyptic mythology of Adventure Time started because some writers decided that frozen businessmen made logical sense in a post-apocalyptic world. They just ran with it. Everything. The Mushroom War, the crater, the Candy Kingdom on nuclear waste, Simon and Marceline in the ruins, the Lich from the bomb, all of it started from a decision about why there were frozen men in business suits floating in an iceberg. The specific poignancy of this origin. The businessmen represent the world that ended. They are the pre-war civilization's most recognizable symbol. The professional, the worker, the man with a briefcase doing work that has no meaning in the world that replaced his. And they are frozen, preserved, periodically thawed out, and incapable of adjusting. They are the past, refusing to stay past. Now let me talk about the opening sequence again, because I want to walk through it in detail. The show's opening begins in a ruined landscape. The Mushroom War Wiki documents what is visible. In the opening shot, 3 nuclear bombs, arrows, axes, and swords are seen. The swords, arrows, and axes imply the stagnation of technological development, in reference to an Albert Einstein quote, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." This Einstein quote, rendered visual in the 4-second pre-title sequence, is the show's opening philosophical statement. The war was fought with nuclear weapons. The world after it was left with swords and axes. The most advanced civilization humanity had ever built ended, and what came after used medieval weapons for the next 1,000 years. The nuclear arsenal and the sword are in the same frame, because they are the beginning and the end of the same trajectory. The same civilization that built the bomb eventually returned to blades. The opening also contains a pair of headphones, Princess Bubblegum's amulet, a severed arm, possibly belonging to Shoko, and an axe can be seen in the trees. And 2 cassette tapes are on the ground. A broken television from the 21st century is in front, and an object resembling a VHS tape is near the TV. Princess Bubblegum's amulet, in the opening sequence, visible in the ruins. This is the amulet that Shoko stole from PB, and that was buried in Finn's treehouse floor for centuries. It is in the opening sequence, in the ruins, as a background detail. The show placed it there before viewers had any context for what it was. Every viewer who watched the opening sequence in Season 1 and Season 2 and Season 3 was looking at a piece of mythology they didn't yet have the information to identify. The severed arm, possibly belonging to Shoko, in the opening sequence. Finn's pattern. Every incarnation loses the right arm. Visible in the opening sequence as a background detail in the ruins. A severed arm in the rubble of the world that ended, possibly from the incarnation that stole the amulet, also visible in the same frame. 4 seconds. Every time the show began. The full disturbing reality, compressed into 4 seconds of ruins before the title card. Now let's talk about the specific quality of what Ooo is, post-war, and what the transition from ruin to candy-coloured world actually means. The mushroom bomb was mutagenic. This is the show's specific mechanism for explaining Oo's impossible variety of sentient life forms. The candy people, the rainicorns, the talking dogs, the fire people, the slime people, all of it. The radiation from the bomb interacted with organic matter and non-organic matter and produced mutations. The mutations, over 1,000 years, produced species. The species built kingdoms. The CBR article on Oo's origins. The bomb also irradiated Earth, which brought life to all of its unique characters, such as the citizens of the Candy Kingdom. But this doesn't fully explain it, because Princess Bubblegum clearly used candy science to create the candy people deliberately. The full mechanism is, the mutagenic bomb released radiation that made mutation and novel life possible, and then PB and presumably other creative entities used that new landscape of possibility to deliberately create life forms. The bomb opened the door, PB walked through it. Jake's origin story supports the radiation as possibility reading. Joshua and Margaret investigations establishes that Jake's father Joshua was bitten by a shape-shifting creature, and the creature's DNA mixed with Joshua's and produced Jake. Jake's magical shape-shifting properties, the core ability that makes him useful as an adventurer, are the consequence of a creature biting his father. The creature itself is likely a post-war mutant. Jake is, in the most direct sense, the grandchild of the war's biological consequences. Lady Rainicorn is a species that appears to be part unicorn and part rainbow, a combination that should not be biologically possible in pre-war Earth biology. The Rainicorns speak Korean. Per the show's established world building, their existence alongside Korean as a language suggests a geographical origin. They may be the result of Korean humans being mutated into something new by the bomb's radiation, and their language persisting through the mutation. A culture survived its people's transformation. The language outlasted the human form, the fire kingdom, the flame. People are clearly derived from some pre-war form of life. They have humanoid body shapes and social structures and political hierarchies and all the markers of organized civilization. Their fiery nature is the mutation imposed on whatever they were before. Flame Princess's father, the Flame King, rules a kingdom whose origins predate the main series. What the Flame people were before they were on fire is not specified by the show. They may have been human, they may have been something else that the bomb transformed into something that burns. The Ice Kingdom, the Ice King's domain. This one is specifically not a product of the bomb. Simon Petrikov's crown predates the war, and the Ice Kingdom is in effect Simon's madness-given landscape. The Ice Kingdom is what happens when someone with ice powers loses their mind and has centuries to express themselves geographically. The perpetual blizzard and the frozen wasteland of the Ice Kingdom is one person's psychosis writ large across a significant portion of Oo's territory. The Ice Kingdom is as much a psychological state as a physical location, and within the Ice Kingdom are the frozen businessmen, periodically, the pre-war professional class, entombed in a psychotic magician's domain, waiting to be thawed out and prove themselves inadequate to the world that replaced theirs. Now let me spend some time on what the show's most specific disturbing detail is, because there is a moment in the show's visual vocabulary that most viewers process as comedy, and that is, when you understand the full context, deeply not comedy. When the candy people get scared, they explode. This is presented as a comedic mechanic throughout the show's run. PB has to manage the candy people's fear responses, because if they get sufficiently frightened, they will explode. The first episode, Slumber Party Panic, is largely about this problem. PB created a formula to revive dead candy people, but accidentally created candy zombies, and she needs Finn and Jake's help to manage the situation without the living candy people finding out and getting scared and exploding. The exploding is played for comedy. The candy gore is colourful and sweet-smelling by implication. Nobody is seriously hurt. It is a quirk of the species, but what it actually is, Princess Bubblegum created a species of people who literally cannot process fear without dying. She made beings who are constitutionally incapable of handling existential threat. In a post-apocalyptic world full of monsters and ancient evils and the literal spirit of extinction walking the earth, she created people who will die if they get too scared, and she has to manage, constantly, the flow of information to them so that they don't learn things that will kill them. This is the specific dark quality of PB's rulership. She is managing the epistemic environment of a people who cannot survive the full truth of their world. She keeps secrets. She controls information. She tells Finn and Jake to keep things from the candy people. She is not simply a benevolent ruler making good decisions. She is a parent managing children who would die if they understood the world they live in. The show presents this as both sympathetic and troubling. PB's control of the Candy Kingdom is sometimes authoritarian. She has surveillance. She has the Gumball Guardians. She makes unilateral decisions about what the candy people are allowed to know. And the basis of this authoritarianism is that she created beings who need the authoritarianism to survive. She built the problem she is solving. She made people who cannot know the truth of their world, and then she manages the truth of their world on their behalf. The Candy Kingdom is both a paradise and a managed epistemic environment. The candy colors are real. The nuclear waste under the candy is also real. The candy people don't know about the nuclear waste. PB knows. She buries it under candy and manages the knowledge. Now let's go back to the opening sequence one more time, and to the first thing shown every episode, before the candy colors, before the adventures, before Finn and Jake and BMO and the Candy Kingdom. 4 seconds of ruins, nuclear bombs, broken television, cassette tapes, the Einstein quote made visual, a severed arm, possibly Shoko's, Princess Bubblegum's amulet, and then the title card, and the music shifts, and Finn and Jake are going on an adventure. This transition from ruins to adventure is the show's fundamental visual argument about what Ooo is. It is the ruins and the adventure simultaneously. The candy colors are the cover on the ruins. The warmth is built on the cold facts of what happened. The music that plays over the adventure is played in the world that the nuclear exchange produced, and the music exists because the exchange produced a world where music is still possible. The Grokkopedia analysis captures this. Adventure Time's post-apocalyptic setting in the Land of Ooo, established approximately 1,000 years after the Great Mushroom War, mirrors real-world anxieties over technological self-destruction and environmental collapse, yet diverges from conventional dystopian portrayals by emphasizing societal regeneration rather than perpetual decay. Societal regeneration. The show is not about the apocalypse. It is about what came after. The disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo is not presented as a horror. It is presented as a fact, as the ground condition, as the thing you know once you know it, and that changes how you read everything. Finn and Jake are not surviving an apocalypse. They are living 1,000 years after one. The ruins are archaeology, not active disaster. The candy colors are what 1,000 years of growth produces when the ground is radioactive and the sky is full of magic, and the people who remain are making something from what was left. The specific word that appears in the show's title card, Adventure Time, is the statement. It is, after everything, adventure time. The world ended, and 1,000 years passed, and there are adventures happening in the ruins. The music hole, which the tiny mammal kingdom analysis identifies as having sung alone for 1,000 years to no one, finally has listeners. Finn is there to hear it. Jake is there. BMO is there. The businessmen are frozen in an iceberg, but they are there too, in their specific way. The adventures are happening. This is the show's deepest claim about the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo. The reality is disturbing, and the adventures happen anyway, not despite the disturbing reality. Through it, over it, in it. The candy colours are the adventure happening in the ruins, and both are real, and neither cancels the other. The tiny mammal kingdom analysis. The land itself bears the scars of this deep, pervading sense of loss. The music hole, which is literally a deep hole in the ground which sings and is introduced in the music hole, can only be heard by those who see the world with childlike wonder, or those with a deep sense of loss in their hearts. You could argue that these two things are the twin poles of adventure time, childlike wonder or a deep sense of loss. The music hole was created by the war. The show implies it has been there for 1,000 years, the span of time since the Mushroom War, and it sings to no one, unable to participate in joy or prevent disaster. It is the war's most specific metaphor, a wound in the earth that is also a voice that can only be heard by people who either have not yet learned to stop seeing wonder or who have learned so much about loss that they have opened to it. Finn hears the music hole because he sees the world with childlike wonder. He is 12, and then 14, and then 16, and he is growing up in a world built on ruins, without fully knowing the ruins, and the wonder is real, and the ruins are real, and both make him who he is. The music hole sings to him because he is the kind of person who can hear it. The heroism principle, in its current instantiation, open to the world in a way that costs him things, and gives him things, and is simply who he is. The Candy Kingdom, built on nuclear waste, is where he eats lunch. The treehouse, grown from his past life's bones, is where he sleeps. The world that ended 1,000 years ago is the world he lives in. He doesn't know most of its history. He doesn't know that the Candy people are made of radiation's aftermath, or that his home grew from his previous self, or that the continent he lives on is in a crater where Europe used to be. He just knows that it is adventure time. He is right. It is. The disturbing reality is real, and the adventure is also real, and you can hear the music hole if you have enough wonder or enough loss. Tonight we have assembled the full account of what the Land of Ooo actually is. The nuclear war that happened between the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The mushroom bomb that ended it and woke the Lich. The crater where Europe used to be. The Candy Kingdom on its radioactive foundation. The treehouse on Shoko's bones. The oozers who may be the mutated remnants of ordinary people who didn't make it to shelter. The businessmen frozen in their suits, trying to apply pre-war professional culture to a world that has no use for it. The opening sequence showing you the ruins before every episode. All of it real, all of it the ground under the candy colours, all of it the world that Finn and Jake go on adventures in every day, without knowing most of it. The show knew, it was always telling you. 4 seconds of ruins before every adventure, the disturbing reality, and the candy colours, in the same frame, always. Thank you for spending all of this time tonight. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion A. The full catalogue of pre-war artifacts hidden in Ooo. The Mushroom War Wiki has assembled a remarkable catalogue of every pre-war artifact visible in the show's background across multiple seasons. Let me go through the most significant ones, because the catalogue assembled is the show's most sustained piece of environmental storytelling. The world the show takes place in is littered with the physical remnants of the civilization that ended, and each one is a specific piece of evidence about who we were. The opening sequence artifacts, catalogued in detail: nuclear bombs, 3 of them, visible, arrows, axes, swords, a pair of headphones, PB's amulet, a severed arm, 2 cassette tapes, a broken television from the 21st century, a VHS tape, a concrete road, car axles and drive shafts. The Mushroom War Wiki notes: an asphalt/concrete road can be seen above Marceline's cave, along with a drive shaft and 2 axles to the right. Marceline's cave. Her house is built into or adjacent to a cave above which there is a section of asphalt road. Marceline, who is over 1,000 years old and was alive during the pre-war period, chose to live in a location that already had pre-war infrastructure. The road above her cave is not decoration. It is the literal road that existed in the pre-war world, preserved 1,000 years later, still present in the landscape she chose to inhabit. She is surrounded by evidence of the world she was alive in before. Tree trunks, Season 1, Episode 4. Wooden traffic signs, which have since somehow mutated into sign zombies. The traffic signs from the pre-war world have mutated into sentient creatures. The specific mutation of traffic infrastructure into monsters is both comedy and the show's specific visual argument about what the bomb's mutagenic qualities did to the landscape. Everything changed, even the traffic signs. The law of the road became ambulatory and threatening. The signs that told pre-war humans where to go now wander through the woods, looking for people to confuse. Susan Strong, Season 1. The human tribe's underground city contains a car, a refrigerator, and some sort of submarine/huge ships, in what may have been a bunker designed to protect survivors. The infrastructure of pre-war life is preserved: cars, appliances, vehicles. The bunker preserved objects better than it preserved people. The human tribe who lives there has mutated significantly, while the objects around them are identifiable to Finn and Jake as things they have heard about from pre-war accounts. Simon and Marcy, Season 5, Episode 14, the most sustained catalogue of ruined infrastructure in the show's run. The episode shows Simon and young Marceline moving through a recently ruined city. Specific visible details documented by fans and the wiki: food trucks with pre-war license plates, the Woot Woot state registration, crashed vehicles, collapsed buildings, oozers clustering in what were recently populated areas. This is Ooo, in approximately year 1 of its existence, the world immediately after the bomb, before the 1,000 years of growth and mutation had transformed ruin into something that could be called a land. Simon and Marcy in Simon and Marcy are walking through what we live in. The ruined city they move through is a future version of cities that exist today, recognizable in structure, destroyed in fact, populated by the mutant products of what destroyed it. The episode is set before the world of Ooo has fully become itself, in the specific window when the old world is most visible in the new world's ruins. Death in Bloom, Season 2, Episode 2. Police vehicles in the Land of the Dead. The dead are descended into through pre-war infrastructure. An escalator leads down to the underworld's entrance, and a TV is buried in the ground. The dead apparently travel on the remnants of the world they lived in. The escalator, which required a society capable of building and maintaining escalators, still works 1,000 years after that society ended. Either the escalator was magical, or the underworld maintains its own infrastructure, or the show is making a specific point about the persistence of certain technologies beyond the civilizations that produced them. Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2. The Ice King's video diaries. Simon's diary, recorded shortly after he found the crown, shows a plane flying outside his window. The plane is almost certainly a military aircraft. The world outside his window, which the diary notes shows no sign of devastation, is about to be devastated. The plane flying past the window is either an ordinary commercial flight or a military aircraft beginning the war's operations. Simon, watching a plane fly past his window without knowing what it means, is the last image of the pre-war world in the episode. The world still normal, still functioning, still unaware of what is coming. The copyright warnings in Video Makers, Season 3, Episode 11. Finn and Jake discover government copyright warnings before the old movies they watch for their film club. The Mushroom War Wiki notes, the first mention of the war in continuity was in Video Makers, when Finn and Jake discover government copyright warnings before the movies they watch for their film club, even though the civilizations that created these warnings would have been long gone by their time. Copyright law. 1,000 years after the civilization that created copyright law has ended, the warnings persist on the media it created. The legal framework that governed information in the pre-war world is still attached to the information, meaninglessly. The law outlasted the civilization that made the law. The treehouse computer. Finn and Jake's treehouse contains a computer, referenced multiple times in the show as technology that Finn and Jake use. The computer is pre-war technology. It survived. It still functions, at least partially, 1,000 years after the civilization that produced it ended. The specific technology of personal computing was robust enough to persist through the apocalypse, the mutagenic bomb, the 1,000 years of magical and physical transformation. The computer works. The social structures that produced it are gone, but the machine functions. Expansion. B. The Candy People, and what they actually are. Let me spend extended time on the Candy People, because they are the most sustained example of the show's specific disturbing reality, and most analyses of them underestimate how dark the full picture is. Princess Bubblegum created the Candy People. This is confirmed in The Vault and referenced throughout the show. She created them, which means their existence is entirely a function of her choices and her science. They did not arise naturally. They were made, and they were made with specific properties. Candy bodies, sugary constitutions, the tendency to explode under sufficient emotional stress that reflects specific design choices or specific limitations of the materials available. The question of what the Candy People know about themselves is relevant here. They know they live in the Candy Kingdom. They know PB is their princess. They appear to know, in general terms, that the world has a history. There are references to the Mushroom War in the show that suggest it is common knowledge at some level, but the specific details of their constitution, that they are the products of nuclear radiation and candy science, that their kingdom is built on a radioactive river, that their tendency to explode is a design limitation rather than a choice. These do not appear to be publicly acknowledged facts within the kingdom. PB manages this. She is the person who knows the full picture and manages the Candy People's access to it. Her management is benevolent in intent. She genuinely cares about the Candy People. She refers to the kingdom as her eternal empire. In Red Starved, she has spent centuries building and protecting and nurturing what she made. But the management itself is a form of control that the Candy People are not in a position to consent to, because consenting to it would require knowing the things she manages access to. Slumber Party Panic, the show's first episode, is about this dynamic at its most explicit. PB has created zombie Candy People by accident and needs to resolve the crisis without the living Candy People knowing what happened, because if they find out, they will get scared and explode. The entire first episode of Adventure Time is about PB managing information so that the people she created don't die from the information. This is the show's opening statement about who PB is and what her relationship to the Candy Kingdom consists of. The specific technology of the Candy People's bodies also deserves attention. They can be modified. PB can modify them. She has done so in various episodes, adjusting their parameters, correcting design flaws, managing the instabilities that appear in beings made from candy science. She is the engineer of her own population. When something goes wrong with a candy person, when they develop unusual behavior, when the design fails in a specific instance, PB has tools for addressing it that no ordinary ruler would have. Gumball Guardians are PB's creations too, enormous defensive entities made from her same candy science. They are soldiers. They are the weaponized expression of the same technology that produces Candy People. The defenseless citizens and the enormous armed defenders are products of the same creator, made from the same materials, deployed in different roles. PB does not simply rule the Candy Kingdom. She is its architect in the most complete possible sense. She made the people, made the weapons, built the castle on the nuclear waste, and continues to manage all of it. The exploding mechanic, when you think about it from a design perspective, is remarkable in its implications. If you were designing a species of people to inhabit a post-apocalyptic world full of monsters and ancient evils, you would not give them a fatal response to fear. The exploding is either a design flaw, PB couldn't figure out how to make Candy People who process fear without exploding, or it is a design feature, which would be deeply alarming. The most charitable reading is that it is an unintended consequence of the materials and methods available in the early post-war period when PB was first creating life from candy science, and that she has been managing around this limitation ever since rather than resolving it. Either reading produces a disturbing picture. PB governs people she made, who die if they get too scared, in a world where fear is everywhere, and she manages their fear responses so they don't die. This is the Candy Kingdom's fundamental condition. Expansion. The humans who survived, and what survival cost them. The question of human survival after the Mushroom War is one of the most specifically documented pieces of post-war lore in the show, and it is consistently grim. Category 1. The humans who became oozers. Not confirmed, but strongly implied by the Mushroom War wiki. It has been speculated that oozers are former humans mutated by the mushroom bomb, theorized by the abundance of the creatures in former highly populated areas, such as the metropolis in the episode Simon and Marcy. Former humans, mutated by radiation into shambling, leaking, mindless creatures. The urban oozers cluster in city ruins because they were once city people. The population that was there when the bomb fell became the monsters that now inhabit the ruins. Category 2. The human tribe in Susan Strong. Underground, in a bunker or ruined underground city, mutated over generations until they are unrecognizably human. They cannot speak coherent English. Their language has degraded into something Finn initially mistakes for an unintelligible dialect. They have lost not just their physical human form, but their language, their culture, their knowledge of what they were. The bunker preserved their lives and destroyed their identity. Category 3. Susan Strong herself, who turns out not to be a mutant human, but a human with a cybernetic implant on her head. A seeker, one of the special enforcers from the human island communities. Susan's presence in the human bunker is a separate story. She was sent from the islands as part of the human community's attempt to find information about the outside world. She has been down there long enough to have forgotten her own identity until she encounters Finn, and something in her begins to resurface. Category 4. Two Bread Tom's tribe. The humans who read the atmospheric signs correctly after the war and left. The Mushroom War wiki documents their departure in the Everything Stays miniseries backstory. Roughly a decade following the initial aftermath of the war, a major climate change occurred, implied to have been a result of the war and the dropping of the mushroom bomb. Having detected abnormal atmospheric readings, Two Bread Tom's tribe sailed away from their makeshift forest settlement in a renovated freighter in search of a safer place to thrive. They found the islands. They built the human communities. The island civilization documented in the Islands miniseries, with its helpers and seekers and its enormous guardian that prevents anyone from leaving. The human civilization that survived did so by leaving the mainland and building a locked community. Their survival required isolation. Their isolation was enforced by a robot guardian designed to kill anyone who tried to leave. The island community in the Islands miniseries is not a utopia. It is a managed survival environment that has calcified into something approaching a prison. The people there are fed, sheltered, provided with meaningful work. They are also not allowed to leave. They have been not allowed to leave for approximately 1,000 years. The founders who established the system did so in response to genuine threat. The outside world was full of monsters and vampires, and the aftermath of nuclear war, but the system they built is still in place 1,000 years later, long after the specific threats that justified it have either passed or changed in ways that might allow for reintegration. Doctor. Gross is the clearest product of the system's calcification, a scientist who has spent so long working to improve humans through cybernetic modification that she has lost sight of what human well-being actually consists of. She makes seekers, humans modified for tracking and enforcement, and sends them to the mainland to gather information. She is applying the tools of human improvement to the goal of maintaining the island's isolation. Her science, which should be in service of human flourishing, is in service of the system. Minerva, Finn's biological mother, represents the island system at its most well-intentioned and most limiting. She is a helper, a doctor devoted to caring for the island's population. When the isolation is challenged and people have the option to leave, she initially tries to use the island's digital infrastructure to prevent it, uploading everyone's consciousness to the network, rather than allowing them to face the risks of the outside world. Her protection is totalizing. She loves the people she cares for so completely that she will imprison their minds to keep their bodies safe. Finn shows her what he learned in Ooo, that the world outside is dangerous and beautiful, and that living in it fully is worth the risk. She releases the Guardian. A few people leave, most don't. The island civilization continues. The specific tragedy: humanity survived the apocalypse by building a prison and calling it safety. The walls that kept the monsters out also kept the people in. The Guardian that prevented vampires from reaching the islands also killed the humans who tried to leave. 1,000 years of this. And when finally the outside world is shown to be survivable, when Finn demonstrates that the chaos of Ooo can be navigated by someone with enough courage and goodness, most of the humans still don't leave. They are too accustomed to the walls. Expansion. D. The magic hole and what it says about Oo's emotional landscape. The music hole deserves extended treatment because it is the show's most specific metaphor for what Ooo is at the level of emotional reality, not simply the physical reality of the ruins, but the emotional reality of what it means to live in a world that survived something catastrophic. The music hole appears in Season 7's The Music Hole, written and storyboarded by Tom Herpish and Steve Wolfhard. It is a deep hole in the ground that sings. Its voice is beautiful and haunting. It can only be heard by people who either see the world with childlike wonder or who carry a deep sense of loss in their hearts. The Tiny Mammal Kingdom analysis. The music hole has been there for 1,000 years, the span of time since the Mushroom War, suggesting it was probably caused by the war and has been alone ever since, singing to no one, unable to participate in joy or prevent disaster. It's a symbol of how the apocalypse in this world created scars which run unfathomably deep, and demonstrates how the show incorporates the loss and sadness caused by the end of the world into the very land itself. The music hole is a wound in the earth that is also a voice. It was probably caused by the war. It has been singing for 1,000 years, with no one able to hear it, not because no one was present. Ooo is inhabited, has been for centuries, but because most people don't carry enough wonder or enough loss to be open to what the music hole is saying. This is the show's deepest statement about what Oo's emotional landscape is. It is full of things that can only be heard by people who are paying attention in specific ways. The ruins in the background of every episode are visible if you look. The nuclear waste under the Candy Kingdom is there for those who know where to look. The music hole is audible to those whose hearts are open in specific ways. The world of Ooo is layered. The candy colours on the surface, the ruins and the waste and the grief underneath, and the depth of what you see depends on the quality of your attention. Finn hears the music hole because he is 12, and he sees the world with wonder. BMO can also hear it, for similar reasons. The candy people cannot hear it, or at least it is not established that they can. The music hole sings for those who are open to it, and the openness required is exactly the openness that makes someone capable of the heroism and the grief and the love that Adventure Time is actually about. The 1,000-year wait of the music hole is also the 1,000-year wait of everything in Ooo. The ruins waited 1,000 years to be built on. The nuclear waste waited 1,000 years under the candy. Simon waited 1,000 years as the Ice King. Shoko's bones waited 1,000 years in the treehouse floor. The music hole waited 1,000 years to be heard. The apocalypse happened 1,000 years ago, and Ooo is 1,000 years of consequences, still unfolding. The waiting is built into the world's structure. Everything in Ooo is either what the apocalypse produced, or what grew from what the apocalypse produced, and the growing has been happening for 1,000 years, and some of it is candy colours, and some of it is music, and some of it is nuclear waste, and all of it is real, simultaneously. Expansion, the businessmen, as the clearest symbol of the old world. I want to return to the businessmen, because they deserve more time than the main script gave them. They are the show's most specific and most poignant representation of the civilization that ended. The businessmen in business time are not warriors. They are not survivors in any conventional sense. They are professionals, middle managers perhaps, or executives, or the kind of person whose role in the pre-war world consisted of office work and briefcases and the specific social rituals of corporate professional life. They are frozen in their suits. Their suits are the specific artifact of a culture that dressed certain kinds of people in certain kinds of clothing to signal their professional status. When they are thawed out, they try to help. They genuinely try. They offer their skills, project management, delegation, the organizational expertise of pre-war professional culture. And these skills, applied to the specific challenges of Ooo, are nearly useless. Oo's challenges require courage and magical aptitude and specific knowledge of the post-war world's geography and dangers. The skills of corporate professional culture do not transfer. The businessmen's attempt to be useful quickly degrades into passivity, then entitlement, then a kind of cargo cult behavior where they perform the forms of their former identity without any of the substance. The cargo cult reading: the businessmen have the artifacts, suits, briefcases, organizational terminology, and the habits, delegation, management hierarchy, professional behavior, of a culture that no longer exists. They apply these artifacts and habits to a context where they produce no meaningful results, because the context they were designed for is gone. They are performing civilization in a world that has moved on from the civilization they are performing. They are eventually refrozen. The show's narrative resolution is to return them to the ice, to return them to stasis, to the preservation that has kept them from having to confront the full distance between the world they were formed in and the world they find themselves in. The refreezing is a kindness of a sort. They are not capable of adapting to Ooo. Ooo is not capable of providing what they need. The ice preserves them from the reality of what happened. This is the show's most quietly devastating statement about the old civilization. It cannot be revived. The people who made it cannot adapt to what replaced it. The suits and briefcases and organizational skills that defined a successful professional in the pre-war world are artifacts in the archaeological sense in the post-war world. Remnants that reveal something about who we were, not tools for who we are. The businessmen are refrozen and the adventures continue. Expansion, the full scope of the post-war transformation. Let me try to sketch the full picture of what the Mushroom War produced, because the show distributes this information across so many seasons and so many background details that it is rare to see it assembled into a single coherent account. The war destroyed human civilization and nearly destroyed the human species. The specific near annihilation, the Mushroom War Wiki, states the war crippled and eventually resulted in the near total annihilation of the human species. Nearly total, not complete. The humans on the island survived. The occasional human in Ooo survived. But the civilization that produced Shakespeare and nuclear physics and Cheers and VHS tapes and axles and traffic signs is gone. The mutagenic bomb released radiation that transformed survivors and landscape. The specific transformation produced magic. The Earth Wiki notes, as a possible result of the Great Mushroom War, magic runs rampant across Earth. Magic is a consequence of the war. The specific mechanics of how nuclear radiation produces magic is not explained by the show. It is presented as fact, as something that simply happened. The bomb went off, the world changed, magic was part of the change. This means that every magical thing in Ooo, every spell, every enchanted item, every magical being, is ultimately a consequence of the Mushroom War. The Ice King's crown, which predates the war, is an exception, but everything else, the Rainicorns, the Candy People, the Fire People, the Lich himself, the Lich's Well of Power, the multiple magical kingdoms, the Wizards of Wizard City, all of it is the bomb's children. Magic is what the nuclear aftermath made. The world rebuilt itself from this. Not immediately. Simon and Marcy shows the immediate post-war landscape as genuinely apocalyptic, empty, dangerous, full of mutant creatures and radiation and the specific chaos of a world that was recently catastrophically destroyed. But over centuries, new life organized itself into new societies. The Candy Kingdom was built. The Fire Kingdom was established. The Ice Kingdom grew around Simon's madness. The Rainicorn communities formed. The wizards gathered. 1,000 years later, the Land of Ooo is a functioning world, with kingdoms and economies and social structures and arts and relationships. It is also a world built directly on the ruins of everything that came before it. The ruins are not fully hidden. They are in every episode's background, in the treehouse's wooden floors, in the radioactive river under the candy, in the escalator to the underworld, in the businessmen, in their iceberg. The world of Ooo is both a new thing and the old world's consequences. It is what happened to Earth after the worst thing humanity ever did to itself. It is not simply a wasteland. It has been 1,000 years, and the wasteland has become something. But the wasteland's origins are in everything. The candy colours are built on the ruins. The warmth is built on the cold fact of what happened. And Finn and Jake go on adventures in it, every day, with complete commitment and joy. Because the adventure is real, even when the ruins are real. Because the warmth is genuine, even when the cold facts are genuine. Because it is, after everything, Adventure time. That is the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo, and that is also why, knowing it, the show becomes more beautiful rather than less. The candy colors are more vivid against the ruins. The friendships are more precious against the 1,000 years of loss. The music hole is more moving when you understand why it has been singing alone for so long. The ruins are there. The music is also there. Finn hears both. Thank you for spending all of this time tonight with me. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion G. What the show never explains and why the gaps matter. Adventure Time is deliberate about what it tells you and what it doesn't. The gaps in the lore of the Mushroom War are not accidental. The show constructed them carefully, and the gaps are as meaningful as the confirmed facts. What started the Mushroom War, never confirmed. The show tells you it was a nuclear exchange. It does not tell you which nations fought it, which side fired first, what the political context was, what the specific grievances were. The Einstein quote in the opening sequence suggests the show's own position on these questions. They don't matter. Whatever reasons humanity had for starting the last war, the specific political and ideological and resource conflicts that led to the mutual annihilation are not relevant to Ooo. They are history that cannot be recovered, fought over things that no longer exist, between nations that no longer exist, for reasons that died with the people who held them. The show's silence about the war's causes is a statement. The causes don't matter, the consequences do. Ooo is the consequence. The ruins are the consequence. Simon and Marceline in the rubble is the consequence. The Candy Kingdom on nuclear waste is the consequence. Whatever started the war, this is what it produced, and the production is what matters. What the mushroom bomb's specific mutagenic mechanism was, not confirmed. The show establishes that the bomb's radiation transformed biological matter and potentially non-biological matter in ways that produced sentient life. It does not explain the physics or chemistry of this. This is appropriate. If you tried to explain the physics of nuclear radiation producing sentient candy people, you would either have to commit to science fiction that the show doesn't actually care about, or reveal that the mechanism is magic, which the show also doesn't want to be too explicit about. The gap is the point. Something happened. The something was catastrophic. The world changed in ways that are not fully understood, even by the people living in the changed world. What happened to most of the world outside Ooo? Not confirmed. The Earth Wiki notes there are about 4 continents left on the planet, and that areas of the planet, other than the Land of Ooo, have not been shown or mentioned in the show. 4 continents remain. The missing piece, the crater, was where Europe was. The rest of the world outside Ooo is a complete unknown. What happened to Asia, to Africa, to the Americas, to Australia after the Mushroom War? Did new civilizations form there as well? Are there other post-war worlds happening in other post-war locations? The show doesn't say. It is focused on Ooo because Ooo is where Finn and Jake are. The rest of the world's consequences are not explored. This gap is disturbing in its own way. There are 3 other continents, and we know almost nothing about them. Ooo is not all of the post-war world. It is the piece of the post-war world that the show follows. The other pieces are presumably also full of mutated life forms and ruins and the consequences of the war, but we don't know their specific character. They exist in silence at the edges of the show's map. What Princess Bubblegum's specific origin is ambiguous, though increasingly confirmed to be post-war. Bonnibel Bubblegum and Bonnie and Neddy establish that she budded off the Mother Gum, a foundational candy substance that predates the Candy Kingdom. The Mother Gum's own origin is not fully explained. Is the Mother Gum a post-war creation of candy science? Is it something older? Did the mutagenic bomb produce the Mother Gum? Or did the Mother Gum exist independently and produce PB in the post-war environment? The show gives you enough to know that PB is not a pre-war human, and that she has been building and managing the Candy Kingdom for what appears to be at least several centuries, but her precise origin point remains deliberately ambiguous. Expansion H, the specific horror of the Ice Kingdom as physical psychosis. The Ice Kingdom is the most personal piece of Oooo's disturbing reality because it is entirely one person's breakdown writ large across the landscape. Simon Petrikov found the crown in Scandinavia. He put it on, initially playfully, at a Halloween party. The crown began changing him. He put it on more, to protect himself and Marceline in the ruins. Each use cost him more of himself. Eventually, he became the Ice King permanently. The crown's influence complete, Simon receded, and what was left was the specific character we encounter in Adventure Time's present. The Ice Kingdom is what the Ice King's mind creates. The perpetual blizzard, the snow and ice extending across significant territory, the frozen landscape in which penguins live, and Ice King schemes. All of this is the material consequence of one person's magical madness expressed over 1,000 years. Simon Petrikov, losing his mind over centuries, built a kingdom from his madness. The specific character of the Ice Kingdom reflects specific aspects of the Ice King's psychology. The isolation. The Ice Kingdom is far from other populated areas, separated by the specific cold that makes it inhospitable to most. The Ice King is deeply lonely. His kingdom is a physical expression of isolation. He has made his loneliness into terrain. The penguins, Gunter and the other penguins, are the Ice King's chosen companions, creatures that suit his frozen domain. He collects penguins the way someone might collect objects to fill the specific shape of a void. He names them all Gunter. Every penguin is Gunter. This is either a symptom of his crown-induced memory loss, or a symptom of a specific need to have something he can identify consistently, or both. The penguins are his companions, in the way that a person with severe dementia might relate to caregivers, present, named, familiar, but not quite understood as distinct individuals. The princess kidnapping behavior is the crown's specific expression of Simon's deepest wish, which is to have a family. Simon lost Betty. The crown's warped version of this wish produces the Ice King's compulsion to kidnap princesses and try to get them to marry him. He wants what he lost. He cannot remember what he lost. The crown gives him a compulsion that is the warped version of the love he had and can no longer access. He kidnaps princess after princess and proposes to them and is rejected. And the rejection is absorbed by the crown's madness, so he can try again, because the crown's version of the wish for love does not include the self-knowledge that would make the wish fulfillable. The specific horror. Simon is still in there, somewhere. Betty establishes that he can surface when the crown's power is temporarily removed. The person who sang cheers for a 6-7-year-old in the ruins is still present under 1,000 years of crown madness. The Ice King, with all his schemes and his loneliness and his kidnapping, is what you get when you bury Simon under 1,000 years of magical insanity. But Simon is the bedrock that the Ice King is built on. The Ice Kingdom is Simon's mind, and Simon's mind, when the crown has hold of it, produces isolation and cold and compulsive reaching for something that is gone. This is one person's grief made into landscape. The Ice Kingdom is a 1,000-year monument to what happened to Simon Petrikov when he loved someone and put on a crown to protect her and lost himself in the protection. Expansion 1. What the post-war world feels like from inside it. Let me try to describe what it must feel like to be a resident of Ooo with full knowledge of its history. To be Marceline, say, who has been alive for all of it. Marceline was approximately 4 or 5 years old at the time of the Mushroom War, making her one of the only beings in the show's present who has direct memories of the pre-war world. She was a child in the world that ended. She was a young vampire queen in the world that replaced it. She has been alive for the full 1,000 years of Oo's development. She remembers the food trucks with Woot Woot state license plates. She remembers what cities looked like when they were full of people. She remembers the specific quality of the post-war world, when it was still mostly ruin. The oozers, the danger, the cold, Simon's deterioration. She has watched everything that exists in the present of Adventure Time being built from nothing, over centuries, by people who were also trying to survive in the aftermath. The Tiny Mammal Kingdom analysis captures something important about Marceline specifically. Marceline is trapped in a seemingly endless cycle of building community with others. Her mother, surrogate fathers like Simon, other groups of humans who end up leaving the continent, romantic partners, only for them to eventually leave, frequently in ways which suggest it's her own demonic/vampiric nature which is driving them away. 1,000 years of watching people leave. Her mother died of radiation sickness. Simon was taken by the crown. The humans she helped protect sailed away with two-bred Tom. The specific cycle of building relationships that end because she outlives humans, because her demon nature alienates people, because the world keeps changing around her, is the psychological experience of being alive across the full span of Oo's 1,000 years. Every ruin in the background of every episode is something Marceline remembers when it was not a ruin. The broken television in Simon and Marcy is from a world she was alive in. The cassette tapes in the opening sequence are from a world she knew. When Finn walks through the ruins of pre-war infrastructure, he sees archaeology. When Marceline walks through the same ruins, she sees memory. This is the most specific, disturbing reality of Ooo for anyone who has been there from the beginning. The ruins are not history. They are autobiography. The world that ended is not an abstraction. It is the world that used to be here, where Ooo now is, that these specific people lived in. Marceline plays the bass guitar. She has been playing music for hundreds of years. Music is how she processes the 1,000 years, how she carries the weight of everything she has watched happen and end. The Fry song is not about the fries. The music is how she stays herself across time that would otherwise be too heavy to carry. And in the present of Adventure Time, she has PB, Bubblegum, who is post-war, who was made after the disaster, who represents something new in the world, rather than something preserved from the world that ended. The relationship between Marceline and PB is partly the relationship between the pre-war world and the post-war world, between someone who remembers what was lost and someone who was built from what replaced it. Expansion J, the business world's ghost in every episode. Let me make the case for something that the show does consistently, but rarely explicitly. Every episode of Adventure Time is haunted by the pre-war civilization that produced the world it takes place in. When Finn and Jake visit the Candy Kingdom, they are walking in a post-war confection built on nuclear waste. When they go to the Ice Kingdom, they are moving through one person's grief, given physical form. When they encounter the music hole, they are hearing something that has been singing alone for 1,000 years, with no one to hear it. When they find businessmen in icebergs, they are encountering the professional class of the civilization that ended, preserved in the specific moment of their world's ending. The ghost of the pre-war world is everywhere. The cassette tapes, the VHS tapes, the broken television, the escalator to the underworld, the copyright warnings before old films, the ladder down to the human bunker with its biohazard danger warning that was cut from the final episode. These are the artifacts that a civilization leaves when it ends quickly. Not the artifacts of a civilization that ended slowly and had time to catalogue and preserve its culture. Those would be in museums, archived, organized. These are the artifacts of a civilization that ended in days or weeks, leaving everything where it was when the bomb fell. The VHS tape by the broken television in the opening sequence was not put there by someone archiving the pre-war world. It was dropped by someone when the world ended, or it was left in a player that was left in a room that was left in a building that was eventually ruins. The specific artifact of a specific cultural moment, the home video revolution of the 1980s, is in the grass of the world that replaced the 1980s, present because nobody had time to pick it up. This is what the end of a civilization looks like in Adventure Time's visual vocabulary. Not the organized, considered preservation of important things, but the random scatter of whatever was there when the bomb fell. VHS tapes and axles and traffic signs and police cars. The mundane infrastructure of a world that was there and then wasn't. The specific objects of late 20th century life, scattered across the ground of the world that grew from late 20th century life's destruction. Finn walks past them. Jake bounces past them. They know there was a war. They don't necessarily know what all the artifacts are. BMO might know. BMO is old enough to have accumulated substantial knowledge, but BMO doesn't narrate the ruins. The ruins are just there. The world just has them. Everyone lives in the aftermath, and the aftermath is the world, and the adventures happen in the aftermath, and the aftermath happens to be where you live. This is the disturbing reality in its most complete and most ordinary form. The ruins are not special. They are the ground. They are the wallpaper. They are in every episode, because they are in every place. The post-war world is not a disaster zone being slowly cleaned up. It is the new normal, 1,000 years of new normal. And in the new normal, Finn and Jake go on adventures. Expansion K, the specific quality of the show's emotional honesty about all of this. One last thing I want to say before we close this out. about how Adventure Time handles the disturbing reality it is set in. The show does not pretend the ruins are not there. It does not make the post-apocalyptic setting a horror to be fled from, or a nightmare to be survived. It makes the ruins the ground of the world, and then asks you to pay attention to what grows from that ground. The candy colours grow from the ruins. The adventures happen in the ruins. The warmth is genuine, and the ruins are genuine, and neither cancels the other. This is the show's most honest and most radical choice, to treat the end of the world not as a tragedy requiring resolution, but as the condition from which something new emerges. Not better than what came before. The show doesn't make that claim. Different. The candy people are not better than the humans who were replaced by their mutagenic emergence. They are what the mutagenic process produced, and they are lovable and fragile and occasionally explosive, and they live in a world they were made for. The businessmen, frozen in their suits, are not presented as the superior form of human life. They are what was there before, preserved, inadequate to the present. Their inadequacy is not a condemnation. It is a fact about what happens when a world ends and something else begins. The forms of life that were selected for by the old world are not competitive in the new one. This is sad, and it is also just what happens. Simon Petrikov is not presented as simply a tragic figure, though he is tragic. He is also the Ice King, ridiculous, lonely, occasionally menacing, ultimately pathetic, in the specific way of someone who has been given something that has taken everything from them and cannot give it back. Both things. Simon and the Ice King in the same body. The tragedy and the comedy in the same frame. This is what the Tiny Mammal Kingdom analysis identifies as the show's core quality. It cares enough about its characters to truly work to understand how living through the apocalypse would affect them. The apocalypse is real, and its effects on specific people are real, and the show takes those effects seriously without reducing its characters to their tragedies. Marceline is not only the 1,000-year survivor of everything, she also plays the bass guitar and eats the red from things, and has a complicated relationship with her father, and loves PB. The tragedy and the ordinary life are simultaneous. This is what the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo actually is, in its most complete form. A world where catastrophe happened, and people lived through it, and built things from what was left. And those things are sometimes candy kingdoms on nuclear waste, and sometimes music holes that sing alone for 1,000 years, and sometimes a 12-year-old boy in a white hat going on adventures in a hole where Europe used to be. All of it real, all of it the world, all of it simultaneously Adventure Time. Thank you for spending all of this time with me tonight. The ruins are always there, in the background. The adventures happen anyway. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion L. Specific moments where the ruins become the plot. The disturbing reality behind Ooo doesn't stay in the background. There are specific episodes where the pre-war ruins become central to what's happening, where the archaeology of the old world intrudes into the adventure in ways that change everything. Simon and Marcy is the most sustained of these, but let me examine several others that are often overlooked. Ocean of Fear, Season 1, Episode 16. Finn has a fear of the ocean. The episode addresses this fear through a hypnosis session that reveals its origin. In Finn's fear, the ocean represents something formless and threatening. The CBR article on Oo's post-apocalyptic world notes that Susan Strong contains an underwater city visible when Finn explores underwater. The ocean in Adventure Time is not simply water. It is the surface over a submerged world. Pre-war cities, pre-war vehicles, pre-war infrastructure. The ocean covers the ruins that didn't survive on land. Finn's fear of the ocean may be, on some level, the fear of what is underneath the water, the direct visual evidence of everything that was there and is gone. Death in Bloom, Season 2, Episode 2. This episode is set substantially in the Land of the Dead, which requires Finn and Jake to descend through an escalator into the underworld. The escalator is pre-war infrastructure. The Land of the Dead contains police vehicles and a TV buried in the ground. The dead, in Adventure Time's cosmology, inhabit a realm that is partially constructed from the remnants of the world they lived in. The infrastructure of the living world persists into the dead world. The escalator works. The TV is there. The police cars are there. Death is partly a function of the pre-war world's physical remnants being incorporated into the realm where the dead go. Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2, Season 3, Episodes 21 and 22. This episode contains Simon's video diaries, and the specific setting of those diaries is pre-war Earth. Simon's apartment, the window with a plane flying outside, the domestic space of a normal person recording himself in normal circumstances, the specific normalcy of the pre-war footage, the comfortable apartment, the ordinary clothes, the camera set up on a desk, is the contrast that makes the Ooo present so disturbing. Simon's pre-war world was just a world. People had apartments and fiancés and crowns they bought from dock workers in Scandinavia, and then it ended, and the crown kept going. The Real You. Season 2. First time Earth is visible from space. The crater. Looking at Earth from space in this episode and seeing the crater is the single most disturbing image in the show's first 2 seasons. More disturbing than any monster. More disturbing than the Lich himself, because the crater is not a monster. It is a fact about the planet. Finn is looking at Earth from space, and Earth has a hole in it where something massive used to be, and it's been there for 1,000 years, and it's just the shape of the world now. BMO, Distant Lands, 2020. The Mushroom War Wiki notes. In the Distant Lands episode, BMO, CGO's backstory shows the creation of the crater happening at the same time as the detonation of various mushroom bombs. The crater's formation was the result of a weapon other than a mushroom bomb, however, as a distinct explosion resembling a ball of electricity is shown creating it, suggesting that an advanced electromagnetic energy weapon was responsible. An advanced electromagnetic energy weapon. The crater in Earth was not made by nuclear bombs. It was made by something else. Something more powerful, something with the specific destructive capacity to remove a significant portion of a planet's mass.
The war involved multiple categories of weapon, at least some of which were more advanced than what we currently understand nuclear weapons to be capable of. The pre-war civilization, whatever it was in the specific timeline of Adventure Time, had weapons that went beyond nuclear. The crater is evidence of this. This retroactively makes the pre-war civilization slightly more disturbing. They had weapons capable of literally removing portions of planetary mass. They used those weapons. Whatever geopolitical crisis drove them to use weapons capable of creating craters, that crisis is gone. The weapons are apparently gone. What remains is the hole where Europe was. Expansion M. The 4-second opening sequence. As complete philosophical statement, I want to go back to the opening sequence one final time, because I think it deserves to be understood as the complete philosophical statement it actually is, rather than simply a collection of background details. 4 seconds.
Before every episode, before the adventure, before the title card, before the cheerful music that carries through the show's run, the camera moves through a ruined landscape. The ruins are specific, not generic fantasy ruins, not vague post-apocalyptic devastation, but specific 20th century artifacts, mixed with pre-industrial weapons, nuclear bombs and cassette tapes and VHS tapes, and a broken television, and car parts, and traffic signs. The specific mixing is the point. The nuclear bomb and the cassette tape, in the same frame, is the show's opening visual statement. We know what world this is. We know what period ended. We know that the same civilization that produced the nuclear bomb also produced the cassette tape, and both are now ruins in the same landscape. The Einstein quote made visual, swords and axes alongside the nuclear bombs, is the show's opening intellectual statement. The civilization that ended knew, or should have known, what it was doing. Einstein said this. The show puts Einstein's warning in the opening credits as a visual tableau. The swords and axes that the post-war world has reverted to are not surprises. They were predicted. The person who helped develop nuclear weapons warned that their use would end civilization as it existed and replace it with something more primitive. The show's opening sequence is his warning made literal. PB's amulet in the opening sequence, the amulet that Shoko stole, and that Finn eventually returns, is the show's opening mythological statement. The specific loop that the show's mythology will eventually complete is visible from the beginning, in the ruins, to anyone who knows what they are looking at. The show trusted viewers to not know what the amulet was in Season 1, and to recognize it in Season 5 when the full story arrived. The severed arm, possibly Shoko's, is the show's opening foreshadowing. The arm pattern that will eventually manifest in Finn's specific loss in Escape from the Citadel
is visible in the ruins of the world that preceded him. The heroism principle loses the right arm. Evidence of this loss is in the pre-title ruins. The cassette tapes and VHS tape and broken television are the show's opening cultural archaeology. These are the specific artifacts of a specific cultural moment, the home media revolution of the 1980s, which corresponds with the earliest possible date for the Mushroom War, given the Cheers reference. The bomb fell during or after the period when VHS and cassette tape were the dominant home media formats. These are the artifacts of the cultural moment when the world ended. Everything in those 4 seconds is doing specific work. Nothing is random. The show constructed the opening sequence as a precise statement about what the world is and what the show will be, compressed into the pre-title moment before every episode, and then the title card, and then the adventure. The adventure is real. The ruins it begins in are also real. The 4 seconds of ruins before every adventure is the show's reminder. This is where we are. This is what happened. This is the world we are adventuring in. Now go. Expansion. What it means that the show doesn't dwell on any of this. The most disturbing thing about the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo may be how untroubled the show's characters are by it. Finn knows about the Mushroom War. He knows Ooo is post-apocalyptic Earth. He knows Simon was a pre-war human. He knows the treehouse grew from his past life's bones. He returned the amulet. He knows more about the specific history of his world than most of Oo's population does. And he does not appear to find this particularly distressing. He is not haunted by the ruins in his background. He does not feel the weight of the pre-war civilization in the way that Marceline does. He is 12, and then 14, and then 16, and the world he is growing up in is the world he is growing up in, and the ruins are part of the landscape, the same way the candy colours are part of the landscape. Both are just there, both are the world. This is the show's most radical and most hopeful claim, that you can know the full disturbing reality of your world and still throw yourself into it with complete openness. Finn knows, and he goes on adventures anyway. He is the heroism principle in its current instantiation, and the heroism principle does not sit with the ruins and grieve. It acknowledges the ruins and gets on with the specific work of helping people who need help in the world the ruins produced. The Tiny Mammal Kingdom analysis identifies this as the key. It isn't the fact that the show's setting is post-apocalyptic in itself, which makes Adventure Time special. It's that it cares enough about its characters to truly work to understand how living through the apocalypse would affect them. How living through the apocalypse would affect a 12-year-old who grew up in its aftermath 1,000 years later. Without direct experience of the catastrophe itself, he would grow up in a world that is just the world. The ruins are archaeology, not memory. The weight of the loss is not his to carry because it was not his loss. He is the inheritor of the world the loss produced, not the person who experienced the loss. He is the world's morning rather than its night. This is why Finn and Marceline have such a specific dynamic in the show. She has been awake for the full night. He is the morning. She carries the full weight of the 1,000 years. He carries the lightness of someone who started in the world that the 1,000 years produced. Both are necessary, both are real. The morning person and the night person both exist in the same world, and their different relationships to its history are both true. The ruins are there. The morning is also there. The night that produced the morning is also there. All of it, simultaneously, in the same frame. This is the Land of Ooo. Expansion. O. The complete account of what Ooo is. Let me give you the full picture one more time. Assembled, so you have it whole. Ooo is Earth. Specifically, Earth approximately 1,000 years after a global nuclear exchange, the Mushroom War, that destroyed human civilization and nearly destroyed the human species. The war occurred sometime after 1982, given the Cheers reference in Simon and Marcy. Its specific political causes are not known and are presented as not mattering. The war ended with the detonation of the mushroom bomb, a mutagenic weapon that transformed the biological and physical landscape. The bomb also released the essence of the Lich, which had been dormant in the Earth's geology since the KT extinction event 65 million years ago. The bomb's detonation and the Lich's awakening are simultaneous events. A separate weapon of unknown type, possibly electromagnetic, created the massive crater in what was formerly Europe. Ooo is very close to, or possibly inside this crater. What was Europe is now a hole in the planet.
the mutagenic bomb's radiation transformed survivors and landscape, producing magic and new forms of sentient life. Over 1,000 years, these new life forms organized into the kingdoms of Ooo. The Candy Kingdom is built on a river of nuclear waste that PB buried under candy. The Ice Kingdom is Simon Petrikov's madness given physical form over centuries. The Fire Kingdom is the Flame People's Society, whose pre-war origins are unknown. The Rainicorn communities exist and speak Korean, possibly descended from Korean-speaking humans who were mutated. Human survivors took 3 primary paths. Some became the Oozers, mutated beyond recognition. Some survived in underground bunkers and mutated over generations, the human tribe. And some sailed away to build the island communities that Finn's biological parents came from. The island communities survived in isolation for 1,000 years, under the management of a robot guardian that prevented escape. Finn and Jake live in the treehouse that grew from the body of Shoko, Finn's previous incarnation, who died in the nuclear waste river below the Candy Castle, and whose bones became the soil for the tree that became the home. The treehouse floor covers Shoko's skeleton. The opening sequence of every episode shows 4 seconds of ruins from the pre-war world before the adventure begins. This is the Land of Ooo. Every episode takes place in it. The adventures are real. The ruins they happen in are also real. Both are the show. Both have always been the show. Thank you for all of this time tonight. The ruins were always there. Now you know what they are. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion. The specific relationship between magic and nuclear aftermath. One of the most underexplored elements of Oo's disturbing reality is the specific relationship between the Mushroom War's radiation and the presence of magic in the post-war world. The Earth Wiki states, as a possible result of the Great Mushroom War, magic runs rampant across Earth. The word possible is the Wiki's appropriate hedge. The show doesn't definitively confirm the causal link, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. Before the Mushroom War, magic existed but was rare and not well understood. Simon Petrikov, who found the crown in Scandinavia before the war, is documented in his video diaries as not having believed in the supernatural until the crown changed him. An educated man, an antiquarian with specialized knowledge of ancient artifacts, had no framework for magic before the crown provided direct evidence of it. The specific quality of his disbelief, not hostile to the idea, simply without evidence, suggests that magic was genuinely rare or imperceptible in the pre-war world. After the Mushroom War, magic is everywhere. The specific post-war world is saturated with magical phenomena in a way the pre-war world was not. The Rainicorns exist, the Candy People exist, talking animals exist, wizards exist in sufficient numbers to have their own city. Magic is not exceptional in Ooo. It is the baseline condition of reality. The specific mechanism by which nuclear radiation produces magic is not explained, but the circumstantial evidence suggests the bomb's mutagenic quality did something to the laws of physics in Oo's specific part of the world, something that made magical transformations possible, that made the boundary between animate and inanimate matter more permeable, that made the kind of transformation that produces sentient candy people from nuclear waste and candy science achievable. Traffic signs became sign zombies. The signs were not originally alive. Nuclear mutation gave them life. This is the most mundane possible version of the show's magical transformation story. Inanimate infrastructure, subjected to the bomb's mutagenic effects, became ambulatory creatures. If traffic signs can become zombies, the boundary between the living and the inanimate in post-war Ooo is different from the boundary in pre-war Earth. Jake is an example of biological magic produced through contact rather than direct radiation. His father Joshua was bitten by a shape-shifting creature. The creature's supernatural DNA mixed with Joshua's natural DNA, and Jake was produced. Jake's magical properties, shape-shifting, size manipulation, the general magical elasticity of his body, are inherited from a creature that was itself likely a post-war mutation. The magic is heritable. It passes through generations. The post-war world's magical quality is not a temporary effect of the radiation. It is a permanent change to the rules of biology in the world the radiation produced. This has a deeply disturbing implication. The Mushroom War permanently altered the laws of nature in the world it destroyed. The pre-war world's physics, where traffic signs are inanimate and nuclear radiation kills rather than creates, no longer apply. The post-war world operates under different rules. And those different rules were not chosen or designed. They are the consequences of a weapon used for destruction that happened to also produce, through the specific mechanism of mutagenic radiation, a world where different things are possible. The candy colors are not simply post-war optimism. They are the specific visual expression of a world where the bomb permanently changed what matter can do. The orange of the candy trees and the blue of the sky over the Candy Kingdom and the specific bright palette of Oo's landscape are partly the visual consequence of a world where nuclear aftermath produces magic rather than simply death. The beauty is not despite the horror. The beauty and the horror have the same cause. Expansion Q, the treehouse, as the show's most complete symbol. I want to end on the treehouse, because the treehouse is the show's most complete single symbol of what the Land of Ooo is, and I don't think it receives the attention it deserves. The treehouse is Finn and Jake's home. It is where they sleep, where they eat breakfast, where BMO lives, where friends visit, where the adventures begin and end. It is the most domestic location in the show's world, the place that is supposed to be safe and familiar and constant. And it is built from the body of Finn's previous incarnation. Shoko fell into the nuclear waste river. The radiation mutated her. She crawled out of the waste and made her way to a sapling at the site of what would eventually be the treehouse. She died there. Her body fertilized the sapling. The sapling grew, over centuries, into the enormous tree that Finn and Jake's family eventually built a house in. The treehouse is grown from Shoko's nuclear-mutated remains, in the ground above a buried radioactive river, in the kingdom built by the woman who watched Shoko die in the waste, in the post-apocalyptic world produced by the bomb that made the waste. Every layer of the treehouse's specific history is a layer of Oo's disturbing reality. When Finn sleeps in the treehouse, he sleeps above the bones of who he used to be, in the body grown from those bones, in the kingdom built to cover what killed those bones. The home that is supposed to be the most stable and familiar element of his world is, in fact, the most densely layered piece of post-war history in the show. And he does not know most of this until the vault. He has been sleeping there for years before the full picture arrives. The treehouse was always this, before he knew. The house he thought was simply his house has been Shoko's monument, and the nuclear waste's cover, and the loop's waiting room for centuries before Finn's current lifetime. It was always this. He just didn't know yet. This is the disturbing reality of the Land of Ooo, in its most personal and most specific form. What you think is simply your home has a history you don't know. The thing you rely on for safety and constancy has a foundation you can't see. The floor you walk on every day is covering something. The floor is covering something in every location in Ooo. The candy is covering nuclear waste. The warm colors are covering the ruins. The adventures are happening in the holes where civilizations used to be. The treehouse is the most specific version of this, because it is personal. It is Finn's floor, Finn's home, Finn's past life underneath it. When Finn tears up the floorboards and finds Shoko's skeleton and the amulet, he is doing what the show does in every episode. When it shows you the ruins in the background, he is pulling back the candy layer to look at what is underneath. The ruins are always there. The show is always showing them to you, in the background, in the 4-second opening sequence, in the bones under the floor. The adventures happen above the ruins. The home is built from the ruins. The candy is poured over the ruins. And the ruins are still there, underneath, waiting to be looked at by anyone willing to tear up the floorboards. Finn looks. He returns the amulet. He buries Shoko again with the resolution she needed. He goes back to sleeping in the treehouse. The treehouse is still Shoko's bones. The resolution doesn't change that. The loop is closed, but the foundation remains. The history is still there. The home is still the monument. And Finn goes back to sleeping in it because it is his home, and because the history is part of his home now, known rather than unknown, and he lives with it. This is what you do with the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo. You look at it, you acknowledge what is there, and then you keep going, because the candy colors are also there, and the adventures are also there, and the home is also your home, even when it is built from something darker than you knew. The floor covers the bones. The bones are real. The home is also real. Both are the Land of Ooo. Good night. Expansion R. The world before the world. Let me try to sketch what the world that ended looked like, using every piece of evidence the show provides. This is the world that is now ruins in the background of every episode. This is the world whose artifacts are in the opening sequence. This is the world Simon Petrikov was alive in when he found the crown. It was our world, or a version of our world, that diverged from ours at some point. Possibly only slightly, possibly significantly. The technologies are recognizable: television, VHS tape, cassette tape, automobiles, escalators, nuclear weapons, electromagnetic weapons of advanced design, computers. The cultural products are recognizable. Cheers premiered in 1982, and Simon Petrikov knew its theme song well enough to sing it from memory in a state of advancing crown madness. Iggy Pop was a person whose existence Marceline could reference in a conversation with PB. The social structures are implied. There were governments capable of waging global war. There were corporations. The businessmen are from corporate professional culture. There were scientists of sufficient sophistication to develop not just nuclear weapons, but the mushroom bomb's specific mutagenic variant and the electromagnetic weapon capable of removing significant planetary mass. There was professional culture. There was consumer culture. Simon Petrikov was an antiquarian, a specialist in ancient objects and their historical context. He found a crown in Scandinavia from a dock worker. He studied it professionally. His diary recordings show a man who is educated, articulate, emotionally connected to his fiancée, worried about what is happening to him, and trying to document it for whoever might find the record. He is a good person from an ordinary world, doing what a good person does when something terrible is happening to him, trying to understand it, trying to communicate it, trying to leave something for whoever comes after. The specific ordinariness of Simon's pre-war life is the show's most direct window into what the world that ended was like. It was a world of ordinary people, with jobs and fiancés and apartments and windows through which military aircraft occasionally flew, and crowns purchased from dock workers in Scandinavia. The catastrophe that ended it was not the product of something supernatural or extraordinary in the culture. It was the product of the specific destructive capacity that the culture had developed and the specific conditions, political, ideological, perhaps resource-related, that led to using it. The last day of the pre-war world, Simon's diary shows him in his apartment, recording, a plane visible through the window. He bought the crown from a dock worker. He put it on at a Halloween party. He drove away Betty. He documented his deterioration. He walked through the beginning of the apocalypse and out the other side, into the ruins, with a little girl who needed someone to take care of her. The last day of the pre-war world, for Simon Petrikov, was probably very ordinary, up to the moment it wasn't. He was recording himself in his apartment. The plane flew past the window. The world outside still looked normal, and then it didn't. The ruins we see in Ooo are what happened to the world that was outside Simon's window before the plane flew past. The cassette tapes, and the VHS tape, and the broken television, and the car parts are from the world that was normal, until it wasn't. They are the last normal moment, made permanent by its own ending. Expansion, final reflection on what all of this means. Here is what I want to leave you with, having spent all of this time going through the full catalogue of Oo's disturbing reality. The disturbing reality is real. Every piece of it that we've discussed tonight is confirmed canonical lore, documented in the show's wiki, visible in specific episodes, stated by the show's creator. Pendleton Ward confirmed it. Ooo is post-apocalyptic Earth. The Mushroom War was a global nuclear exchange. The crater is where Europe was. The Candy Kingdom is on nuclear waste. The treehouse grew from Shoko's bones. Magic is the bomb's aftermath. The businessmen are preserved from the world that ended. All of that is real and disturbing and completely true. And the show is also the most emotionally warm, most carefully crafted, most genuinely funny and genuinely sad animated series that Cartoon Network produced. The warmth is not in spite of the disturbing reality. The warmth and the disturbing reality are the same show, the same episodes, the same background of every adventure. The specific quality of the show's warmth, why it lands differently from other warm animated shows, is that it is genuine precisely because it knows the cold. Finn's heroism is genuine because it happens in a world where heroism is genuinely needed. Jake's friendship is genuine because it persists through a world where everything else is unstable. The music hole's singing is beautiful because it has been singing alone for 1,000 years. The disturbing reality makes the warmth possible, not just thematically, causally. The bomb that ended the world produced the magic that produced the adventures. The nuclear waste under the Candy Kingdom produced the candy people who live in it. The ruins in the background make the adventures in the foreground legible as adventures. They are happening in a world that needs them. You cannot separate Ooo from the Mushroom War. You cannot separate the candy colors from the ruins. You cannot separate the warmth from the cold that it exists against. The show is what it is because the world it takes place in is what it is, and the world it takes place in is the aftermath of the worst thing humanity ever did to itself, made beautiful and terrible and ordinary all at once, 1,000 years later, with a 12-year-old boy in a white hat, going on adventures in the ruins. The ruins are always there. The adventures happen anyway. This is adventure time. This is the Land of Ooo. Good night. And if you're lying awake now, thinking about the cassette tape in the grass, and the nuclear bomb next to it, and the broken television, and the VHS tape, and Simon's apartment window with the plane flying past, that's right. That's the show landing. It was always there, 4 seconds before every adventure, waiting for you to stop and look. You looked. Good night. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Appendix: the full catalogue of confirmed disturbing facts about Ooo. For the record, every claim in this video is sourced from confirmed canonical lore. Here is the complete account, assembled. The Land of Ooo is post-apocalyptic Earth, confirmed by Pendleton Ward in an interview and on his FAQ page, documented in the Land of Ooo wiki. The Mushroom War was a global nuclear exchange that occurred sometime between the late 20th and early 21st centuries, confirmed by the Mushroom War wiki. The Cheers reference in Simon and Marcy places the war after September 30th, 1982, the premiere date of the sitcom. A massive crater exists where Europe used to be, confirmed by the Earth wiki and Land of Ooo wiki. In Sons of Mars and Orgolorg, it is revealed that Ooo is very close to the massive crater, if not inside it. The crater seemed to be covering what used to be Europe. The crater was created by an electromagnetic or advanced energy weapon, not a standard nuclear bomb. Confirmed in the BMO Distant Lands Special, the crater's formation involved a distinct explosion resembling a ball of electricity. The Candy Kingdom is built on a river of nuclear waste from the Mushroom War, confirmed in the Vault and documented in the Candy Kingdom wiki. A river of radioactive sludge that flowed through the kingdom was in the process of being buried under Candy. The treehouse grew from the body of Shoko, Finn's previous incarnation, confirmed in the Vault. Shoko died at a sapling at what would become the treehouse location, and her remains fertilized the tree. Oozers are speculated to be former humans mutated by the mushroom bomb. The Mushroom War wiki. It has been speculated that oozers are former humans mutated by the mushroom bomb, theorized by the abundance of the creatures in former highly populated areas. Magic in Ooo may be a result of the Mushroom War's radiation. The Earth wiki. As a possible result of the Great Mushroom War, magic runs rampant across Earth. The opening sequence of every episode shows 4 seconds of pre-war ruins, documented by the Mushroom War wiki, which catalogues specific visible artifacts including nuclear bombs, cassette tapes, VHS tapes, a broken television, car parts, traffic signs, and PB's amulet. The Mushroom War's post-apocalyptic setting was not in the original concept of the series, but emerged from the decision that frozen businessmen made logical sense in a post-apocalyptic world, confirmed by Pendleton Ward in a Pop Candy interview. They just ran with it. These facts, assembled, constitute the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo. The show built this picture carefully over 10 seasons, placing the evidence in backgrounds and opening sequences and mythology episodes, trusting attentive viewers to assemble it. The ruins are there every episode. The adventures happen in them every episode. Both are the show. Both have always been the show. Good night. And one more thing. The specific word Ooo deserves attention. because the show never explains why the world is called that, and the explanation, when you look for it, is hiding in plain sight. Ooh is the sound you make when you see something surprising or beautiful. It is the exclamation of wonder. The post-apocalyptic Earth that replaced the one that ended is named for the response it produces in the people who see it clearly. Wonder. The world that grew from the ruins is wonderful enough to be named for the response to wonder. And the world that ended, the one with the cassette tapes and the VHS tapes and the escalators and the businessmen in suits, had no single name. It was just Earth, ordinary Earth, the Earth that was there before anything happened to it, that made it worthy of an exclamation. The apocalypse happened. 1,000 years passed. The ruins became something. The something was wonderful enough to be called Ooo. This is not consolation for the Mushroom War. It is not a claim that the destruction was worth it. It is just a fact about what came after. The world that grew from the bomb is called Ooo. The world is named Wonder, and there are adventures in it. That is the disturbing reality behind the Land of Ooo, and that is also, somehow, a reason to go on. Good night. And if you want to test the theory about the name, the next time you watch the opening sequence, watch those 4 seconds. Watch the ruins, watch the bombs, and the cassette tapes, and the broken television, and the VHS tape, and the specific scatter of late 20th century life across the post-war ground, and then say, Ooh, when the title card appears. Because that's what happens. The ruins, and then the wonder, the cold, and then the candy colours. The 4 seconds of everything that ended, and then the title card for the thing that came after. Ooh. The world that grew from the worst thing humanity did, named for the sound of wonder. The ruins are always there. The wonder is also always there. Both are real. Both have always been real. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. The ruins were in the opening credits all along. Now you know what they are. Good night. And the last thing, truly the last thing, that I want to say is this. Pendleton Ward did not plan the post-apocalyptic setting. He just ran with it, because the businessmen made logical sense in a post-apocalyptic context. The most disturbing and most complete piece of world-building in Adventure Time, the full mythology of the Mushroom War, the crater, the nuclear waste under the Candy Kingdom, the ruins in the opening sequence, all of it started because someone decided that frozen businessmen made logical sense and ran with the implications. The show's most serious and most sustained meditation on what it means to build a world from ruins started from a joke about frozen businessmen in suits. This is how great things work sometimes. You start with a joke about businessmen, and you run with it, and it becomes a complete mythology about nuclear aftermath and the specific tragedy of Simon Petrikov and the specific resilience of everything that grew from the bomb and the music hole singing alone for 1,000 years. And the treehouse grown from bones, and the candy colours over the nuclear waste. You start with a joke, and you run with it, and you end up with the Land of Ooo. The ruins are in the opening credits. The joke about the businessmen became the mythology that made the ruins necessary. The mythology made the warmth more warm. Good night, truly. And one more thought about the businessmen specifically, since they are the accidental origin of all of this mythology and deserve a proper send-off. They are frozen again at the end of business time. They go back into the ice. They are preserved in the moment of their world's ending, suited, briefcased, professionally competent in a world that no longer exists, and incompetent in the world that replaced it. In 1,000 years, someone will probably thaw them out again, or no one will. They might stay in the ice through whatever comes after Ooo, through whatever the world becomes, in the centuries after Shermie and Beth, and the next heroism principle, and the next extinction principle, do what they do. They might be in their suits. When the sun expands to a red giant, the suits will still be inappropriate. The briefcases will still be there. The specific professional culture of the late 20th century will still be preserved in the ice. The world they knew ended. They were frozen. The world moved on without them. The world that moved on without them is the Land of Ooo. And the world that moved on without them is named for the sound of wonder. Ooh. Good night. And a final note on what the 4-second opening sequence is actually doing every episode. It is showing you the world before the title card announces the world. It is showing you the ground before the adventure begins. It is showing you the ruins before the candy colours, the cold before the warmth, the end before the continuing.
Every episode of Adventure Time begins with 4 seconds of confirmation that you are watching something that knows what it is. The ruins are not an accident. The placement of PB's amulet and the severed arm and the cassette tapes and the nuclear bombs in those 4 seconds is not random. The show is telling you, every episode, before the adventure starts, this is where we are, this is what happened, the world that existed ended, and this is what came after, and the adventure is happening in the aftermath.
The title card is Adventure Time, not Aftermath Time, or Ruins Time, or What Came After Time. Adventure Time, because the adventure is the point, the ruins are the context. The adventure is what matters. In the context, the ruins provide 4 seconds of ruins, and then it's adventure time. Good night, subscribe, come back, and the next time you watch the opening sequence, the next time those 4 seconds play before the adventure begins, stop, look at what's in the grass, look at the bombs and the tapes, and the broken television, and the severed arm, and the amulet. Look at all of it. 4 seconds. The world that ended before the world that is adventure time. You know what it is now. The ruins were always there. Now you see them. Good night. Final words on the specific bravery of making Ooo. Let me close with something I genuinely believe about what Pendleton Ward and the Adventure Time team did when they ran with the businessmen and made Ooo. They made a show for children about the end of the world and what grew from it. Not a dark show about the end of the world. A warm, funny, emotionally honest show that happens to be set in the aftermath of a global nuclear catastrophe. They put the ruins in the background and the candy colours in the foreground, and they trusted their audience, at whatever age, watching for whatever reason, to be capable of holding both. The specific bravery of this, making something warm and beautiful, and about adventure and friendship and heroism, and setting it in the ruins of everything, not hiding the ruins, putting them in the opening credits, every episode, 4 seconds before the adventure, and then making the adventure so good that you might watch the show for seasons without stopping to look at those 4 seconds, and then, gradually, over seasons of accumulating mythology, giving you enough context to look at the 4 seconds and understand what you are seeing, to see the amulet in the grass and know what it means, to see the severed arm and understand the pattern, to see the nuclear bombs next to the cassette tapes and understand the Einstein quote made visual. The show trusted you to get there eventually. It put the information in the opening every episode and waited for you to be ready to look at it. You looked. Tonight you looked. The ruins were always there. They are still there. They will be there at the start of every future rewatch. 4 seconds before the adventure, in the world that grew from what ended. Ooh, the world named for wonder. Good night. And the businessmen are still in the ice, suited, briefcased, professionally competent in a world that ended. In the world named Ooo, that is everything. Good night.